Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.
Yeah.
Yo,
The song is so good we had to hear it twice.
Yeah, you got to hear it over and over again. What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, and welcome to the Two Bobs Cast. We're an A to Z rock and metal podcast that goes letter to letter, picking bands to choose, going through their discographies, rating them, telling you what we like, what we don't like. Always having fun. It's been a little bit of a layover for the holidays, so we are happy to be back. Once again, I am here with my partner, Mr. H. Mr. H, how was your holidays? How you doing, buddy?
Very good. Very good.
Awesome.
I'm glad to be back. Been itching to do this.
Yeah.
It's been about a month, huh?
It's been.
I only gave us 2 weeks off next year, so just saying.
Okay.
I cut that shit in half.
I don't know. We just got to make sure we don't include some stalker that's jumped into our preview. I don't even know who.
Danger.
Yeah. Whoa! I need like a rape whistle or something. Like, get away! No.
Oh, too far.
Yeah, too far. My bad. All right. We're here with our buddy from Talking Into Infinity, a Dream Theater podcast. Our buddy, our bestest confidant, especially when it comes to our band today, our buddy Brian Hendrickson. What's up, Brian? How you doing, bud?
I am not a Bob, but I am a biatch, or a BH at least. We've just I am a BH. We got 3 BHs on.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be talking into infinity because where we live right now, we are freezing into infinity.
Yeah, right.
God, ain't that the truth?
For shizzle. But
I just saw Bytor go by.
Yeah.
Well, a little hint there, who we're going to be covering today, if you couldn't tell by the title. But we had to bring Brian in because he, more than anybody that I know, knows his Rush shit. So welcome, Brian. We're going to talk about Rush. We're going to do the first half of the catalog, the first 9 records today. So we had to enlist Brian because honestly, I wouldn't really know a whole lot about Rush, period, if it wasn't for him. Like, hey, Bob, you check out this, you check this out. So, you know, he's been a big kind of influence with Rush as long as I've known him. So we had to have him today to share all his Rush knowledge with us. So thank you, Brian, for jumping in for all the fun.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm not the what do you call it? This not sentimental. I'm not your complete super nerd, full blown into everything. All there is Rush. So if we get people in the chats that go, this guy doesn't know anything, you know.
Yeah, where's John Novak when we need him?
Yeah, that guy. So, but I am a very I would consider myself a very. I guess Rush for me would be probably top 5 band. So
wow.
Yeah, somewhere around there, top 5, top 6. It gets hard when you start talking about this stuff. But thanks so much for having me on, guys. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah,
absolutely. We
got 2 weeks of this. You're gonna be like, get me off of this stupid show.
Be like, I need a break, but instead of a month, it's gonna be like,
hey, this is one more show than we've technically done on Talking Into Infinity. So,
all right,
we did one Van Halen show, which I don't know if I count that because it was on a Saturday, but
it wasn't a marathon one or something you were saying.
Yeah, it was 3 hours talking about 4 unlawful carnal knowledge.
Talking about one album,
which
we broke it down note by note.
It's a great album. Go back and yeah, I
sure
do encourage everyone to go check it out. It was a
not
great
sure
show.
it's that great an album.
Well, yeah.
3
well,
hours.
we're at R. We're coming up on V.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit worried now that
right.
We're gonna have probably Brian's partner.
Did you miss Q though? Did we miss Q?
Miss Q?
No.
Dude,
Oh,
we did
sorry.
Queen.
Oh
Queen.
crap! Sorry, I'm a letter behind still.
Wow. Go
My
listen
bad.
to some Queen. Even though it's funny, we had a bunch of people views for Queen Part 1. Queen Part 2, like nobody cared. So
All right.
I guess that's just the half that everybody likes. So
Yeah.
The holidays totally threw me off, and I stopped at Nazareth, and then I haven't got to orchestral maneuvers in the
Sure.
dark yet. But
okay.
excited for that one.
Well, I think you're gonna
Apparently,
like
you
it.
got your alphabet all mixed up too.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Mr. H. Let's get us started with some Rush. What do you got?
Rush. Always, almost always,
Slow down.
99.5%. Always Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart. Sorry, I always call him Peart, but I know it's
No, it is. It is Pert, actually.
it's Peart. If you look
everybody
up
says
the
Peart.
phonetic, if you look up the phonetic pronunciation, everywhere I saw it said Peart, Peert.
Eddie
It's true.
Eddie Trunk is very strict on that. He says Peart, so I guess we have to go by Trunk's law.
By the guy himself. What movie was it?
Guy.
They made a thing about. They made a movie, and I think it was Paul Rudd, and he was like Neil Peart. He's like, dude, it's Neil Peart is my name.
All right, well,
So okay, whatever.
everybody knows who he is. I'll just call him the professor from now on.
The
How about that?
freaking man. We'll just
'Cause,
call
man,
him.
that guy, holy shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Geddy Lee, bass and vocals, Alex Lifeson on guitar, Neil Peart on drums, except for John Rutsey played drums on the first album. Geddy Lee's this is pretty interesting. Geddy Lee's parents are Holocaust survivors, and that's not the interesting part. That's the sad part. His name is actually Gary. I never knew this, and I'm not a huge Rush historian, but I never knew that his name was actually Gary. But his mom is Polish and has a thick Polish accent. She always called him Geddy. Hey, Geddy.
That's funny.
So his friends heard that and they just started calling him Geddy, and that's why he went with Geddy. I'm like, no, I never knew that. So I love finding stuff like that out when I'm doing this research. So Alex Lifeson's a Serbian descent. His last name is literally translated to son of life in English. So apparently he just chose a stage name Lifeson, which makes sense. Peart replaced Rutsey in 1974, right after the first album was released, as Rutsey was unable to really tour due to a diabetic condition. And we've come a long way in 50 years with diabetes, so I'm sure he had a lot more problems than people have with it these days. So anyhow, as fate would have it, that created the unbelievable Canadian power trio of Rush once he was unable to tour. Lineup remained the same from 1974 to 2015 when they retired due to the professor's worsening health. Unfortunately, we lost him in 2020, I believe. But that's pretty sad. One of the maybe the greatest drummer I've ever heard. I mean, that guy. It's just, and it's all over the place in here. So in these albums, that guy is fantastic. First album. March 18th, 1974, called Rush. There it is, right above Brian's right ear.
Yeah.
Production's not great on this one. It's kind of a cool story that relates to Cleveland, which, where we all live, right outside of Cleveland. Donna Halper was a DJ at WMMS and got a hold of the album and put Working Man as a staple in her playlist. Leading to calls, when she would play it, and they wanted to know where they got where can I get this album at? I haven't found it anywhere. They sold all the Moon Records copies that were in Cleveland. I think Moon Records they originally printed, I don't know, 3,000 of them or something like that. And a bunch of them came here because they were playing the song, and they sold them all out. It actually led Mercury Records to pick them up and actually print more copies. So they do credit Cleveland with helping to get their ball rolling, so to speak. Soon after that, they got Rush to play in Cleveland, one of their first U.S. dates on August 26, 1974. But there's even some liner notes in there somewhere that credits Cleveland with helping them out. Working Man was the first song I ever heard from Rush. My buddy had All the World's a Stage album growing up. When I moved to Brook Park, 1979, I think, or so, And I met this guy down the street who was like 3 years older than me, and he got me into a lot of this stuff. Rich, he had this album, and he figured, if I knew any songs, I would know Working Man, because they played that on the radio around here. So, and that also has a ridiculous Professor drum solo attached to it. So he's like, you got to hear this song and this drummer. This guy is amazing. So, oh my God, I was just blown away by that. Anyway, it's one of my favorite songs of theirs. Also, Working Man. It's just an absolutely great, unbelievably simple guitar riff. Still one of my favorite Rush songs. Big Led Zeppelin influence you can hear on this album. This was kind of before they really solidified into their own kind of sound. You can hear a lot of Led Zeppelin influence in here, especially in Finding My Way, Need Some Love, Take a Friend, What You're Doing, Before and After. Those all just scream Led Zeppelin songs. You can hear a bit of Kiss in there too, I think, and In the Mood in that song. It sounds, there's some Kiss sounding stuff in there. My favorites on this one are Finding My Way, Take a Friend, In the Mood, and of course Working Man. Skippers, None. This is an excellent debut album. Although they did sound different later, I still do like this album a lot. I like the songs on here. I like every song to varying degrees. Here Again drags on a bit, but there's only 8 songs, so that's okay. I wish it sounded better, but it's 50 years old last year, and a debut by a band who didn't have a lot of money, so they produced most everything themselves, with help from a guy named Terry Brown and a couple other people later on. But this album they produced all by themselves. I think Terry Brown did the engineering on this one, and then he helped produce the next one. But I have this as a B plus. And where did I rank this one total? I have this number 2 out of the 9 albums. We're going to do up through Signals today. So that's the 9th album. So I have this number 2 out of 9. Where are we going next? We going Brian?
Brian. Yeah, we'll go Brian.
What do you got for the self-titled?
You have this number 2?
I know, that's wild, right?
Lord,
I do.
oh boy.
I do.
Okay.
I like this album a lot.
I guess we're gonna have some interesting debates later.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, a couple other things I picked up watching some documentaries. So in 1971 they changed the drinking age in Canada to lower, which was a huge, massive benefit to bands like Rush to give them a lot more places to play. Because originally it was basically like school dances, and they were talking about like, okay, well, no school dances wants to hear Rush, come out and play some Sabbath or some Zeppelin or whatever, rim shades of Working Man or Bytor and the Snow Dog or floating around, 4 years earlier.
Right.
And the other thing was I think it was called CanCon or CamCon, and that was basically the declaration that when they played music on the radio in Canada, it had to be 50%, 60%, whatever, had to actually be Canadian artists. And this documentary talks about how that was really instrumental in helping break a lot of those bands, especially Rush, because it made them a bunch of recording studios got built, a bunch of record companies, a bunch more bands, a bunch of musicians. But that was kind of instrumental in sort of, helping them get out there as well.
Instrumental. I see what you did there.
Yeah, exactly.
You did it twice.
Yeah, I mean, the initial album, I'm okay with the production for the time of it.
Yeah.
I'll probably echo a lot of the same things, when we go through this like this, Finding My Way, that's big time Zeppelin there. Just a huge fat opening rocker, it's cool guitar harmony things. I wonder sometimes now when Geddy, goes back and hears the lyrics and vocals on some of this old stuff, what does he think? But we're kids, Need Some Love. That one to me is the one where I think they owe a lot more to Kiss than, what we've come to know as their amazing lyrics. Take a Friend, lyrically it is what it is. Great guitar work. The guitar stuff at the end fading out, it's pretty badass. I only have one here, Skipper, Here Again. I think it's droning and pretty boring. It's bluesy. I don't know. That song doesn't do a lot for me. What You're Doing, I think that was on the first live album. That was one of the ones I think they put on there. It used to be a live staple. A lot of Zeppelin going on in that, but really cool rocker. In the Mood, that's another one they used to play a lot. We get some cowbell, right? That's great.
Heck yeah.
You have too
kind-
much cowbell.
yeah, kind of a standard bluesy rocker, but they start putting, some of these prog type elements in there and they fill it up. Before and after, I also had that as a possible skipper. I don't know. The intro is okay, but it's almost a 2-minute intro. And of course, we end up with Working Man. Like he said, it's one of the coolest opening riffs. And the first time I heard this, and I'm still trying to figure out my Rush chronology because being older than you guys, I'm trying to remember what was going on back then. I'm not sure if I completely heard this before I heard Tom Sawyer and then I went back, or what the timeline was. But first time I heard this riff, I was just like, oh my God, that breakdown in the middle, classic. The guitar and bass echo themselves. There's the drum fill in like H was saying, the live version. This is a great version too, but the live version is where Neil's actually playing on it, so he just destroys it.
You're right.
And those pinch harmonics and the ending of that song where he's bending all those notes, it's like that's such an iconic ending to just a giant 70s rock song, and a perfect way to end the album.
You got to give your rankings. What do you think?
Oh, I'm definitely not going to be 2.
I'm not sure you know what it is.
Yeah, I told Bob I was kind of going to do these rankings on the fly. I'll give this a B plus. I'll probably just go ahead and put it at 9 though.
That's exactly what I gave it, a B plus. So we can't be that far off.
Yeah,
unless your scale goes above A or something.
Yeah. These go to 11.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Okay. Well, okay. It's funny. Like, we're all over the place with this one. I actually was kind of surprised how much I like this record. I definitely hear the Zeppelin influences in it, but I feel like this is heavier than anything Zeppelin really did.
Oh yeah.
Which for me is like, it's like perfect. It's like right down my alley. Like, really good stuff. It's a good rocker. It's a guitar album. I really love Alex's tone in this record. The guitar riffs are sweet. I mean, again, we're not dealing yet with Neil, so the drumming doesn't stand out as much. But man, I think the guitar does. It really, like later on where you kind of will complain that Alex is kind of not the focal point anymore. It's a lot of synthesizers with guitars kind of playing second fiddle, I guess. But here he's right out in front, and I think he's really showing that, man, I can carry this band if I need to, and everybody else just kind of takes their turn later on. But Finding My Way, awesome song. Need Some Love is awesome. I love In the Mood, probably my favorite song on the album, just because Working Man, just a little worn out by it, but phenomenal song. Overall, you guys pretty much have said it all. I like it. Right in the middle of you guys. I actually thought I was going to be controversial with where I had it. I have it number 5, and I have it a B minus. So right in the middle. I just like the rock. I like the straight up rock album. I appreciate a lot of the stuff that they do later on, but to me, I'm not super into the proggy stuff. But this is kind of down my alley. Maybe second to my favorite place in the discography, which we'll get to later. But yeah, I'm gonna go self-titled 5th overall out of 9 and a B minus for me.
All right. On to Fly By Night, February 1975. So we're a year later, basically, and 11 months. 8 songs on this one. This is produced by Rush and Terry Brown, who I mentioned earlier. This kind of feels like just another round of the same kind of thing as the first album. Although I hear a lot less Zeppelin on this one. Here and there, it's still there, but they kind of start to form their own kind of sound. I feel like here, at least that's what I heard. First, Peart performance, right, and writing on this album, and he would go on to be their pretty much primary lyricist moving forward. Also, my favorites on this one are Anthem and Fly By Night. I love Fly By Night too. That's another great song. Skippers, I would say By Tor and the Snow Dog, but I love Neil's drumming so much that I can never seem to turn it off. Like I think, man, this is going on. I'm like, oh, but this part's really good, and I can't shut it off. I didn't care for Rivendell though. Rivendell, it's just, I don't know, a little little too much for me, a little too boring. I have this as a B minus. I had this kind of mid tier. This is still a good album, but it's not as good as the debut, in my opinion. I feel like they found some of their sound here, though, and some songs they just didn't stick with me as much as the ones on the first album. So I have this one at number 5 as a B minus. Brian, what did you think of Fly By Night?
This is an interesting. There's an interesting story on Anthem. So when Neil came to basically audition, I guess they were sort of had the bones of the song working on it, and they could never get Rutsey to settle into what they were trying to do for the groove on this. And Getty's he's real specific when he talks about. I can't remember if it was Getty or Alex talked about it. Said it was not due to his musical ability. It was just there was just such a contrast in styles. And I think he used an example of Simon Kirke, which for the young people out there, he was a drummer for, I think one of the original members too, for Bad Company. So, think more of a straight ahead kind of a rock bluesy type feel drummer. And so they had the bones or what was going to become Anthem, and they had Neil play over it, and they were like, oh my God, this, and I'm not saying that nailed it for them for the audition or whatever, but it's just kind of an interesting story, how that song kind of came to be. Anthem's a great song. Anthem to me shows that Iron Maiden and specifically Steve Harris owe a lot more to Rush than I think we think. There are a lot of Iron Maiden bass lines going on in that
for
song.
sure. Yeah,
and,
agreed.
And I don't know that Steve ever shies away and says he's not, influenced, but man, I there's some Where Eagles Dare stuff going on with all three of them. I mean, there's definitely some Maiden influences, or that Maiden was influenced by, I should say. Best I Can. Musically, it's cool. There's almost a Gene Simmons vibe here. Once again, kind of another Kiss type thing. One of the skippers I have is Beneath, Between, and Behind. I don't know. I don't think there's a whole great melody to this one. Bytor and the Snow Dog. I mean, this is really their first massive kind of prog tune, I think. Spirit shines on this one. The whole middle breakdown part, and if any of our Talking Into Infinity, or because you guys are not the biggest, I know you like Dream Theater, but not the biggest fan. They're the bones of the slow part for Account of Tuscany are in here with some of those guitar swells in that whole middle section. And there's a bit of a precursor for things that come later on, like Xanadu in this one too. Fly By Night title song, I think one of my all-time favorite classic rock 70s tunes. I mean, a killer chorus, the way the bass goes all over the place. It seems like a fairly simple tune on the surface, coming out of like Bytor and the Snow Dog, but iconic guitar solo again, like we talked. And I kind of agree with H. It's this whole thing sort of fizzles out a little bit at the end. Making Memories is, we got Rush doing folk songs, What do we call this? Rolk, fush? I don't know. See what I did there?
I saw it and heard it.
Yeah, unfortunately. Rivendell, this is where they start going into the full bore fantasy stuff. This is Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. I don't mind this. There's a danger in sort of taking some of this stuff a little too seriously, though.
Right. Yeah.
There's a little bit of a kind of a hokiness, but that song doesn't bother me. In the end, I'm not a massive fan of this one. I think it's kind of a droner, and I don't know that it's a great album closer. It's definitely not the way, Working Man was. So this album kind of starts out really strong, and it's sort of like H said, sort of fades at the end. I'm going to give this one a B minus. And I'll go ahead and settle it in at 7.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a whole lot more to say after you guys. I pretty much agree with you. I really like the beginning of the album. Anthem's awesome. Best I Can is pretty good. I don't mind Beneath, Between, and Behind. Fly By Night is awesome. Probably one of the first songs I've ever heard by Rush. Bytor, I agree with H on this one as well. The instrumentals is really damn good. A lot of this will kind of be a theme going forward, is like I cringe at so many of these lyrics, and for as amazing as Neil is at drumming, it doesn't hit with me. All these lyrics, I'm just like shaking my head. Like there's even a lot of times, and maybe it's Getty's voice as well, being so high and screechy, that This is
Yeah,
like
I'm going to touch on that a few times as well.
Yeah, this is like the one band that I'm really paying attention to the music, and I really don't care all that much about what's like. There's so many hits of theirs that I don't know what they're saying. I don't know the words to them. I kind of like hum along. So this is kind of the start of it. Like By Tor is the music's awesome, but like I can't digest the stories that are going on for most of these songs. So the end of it, it loses me. I'm completely bored out of my mind by Making Memories. Rivendell doesn't help. So I'm with you guys. My sentiment is exactly the same with this album. So with me, it's good. It's right in the middle. It's a C, and I have it at number 6. It's good, but I like it better overall than some of the proggy stuff coming up. So it does fit nicely in at number 6 for me. So Fly By Night, number 6, and a C.
All right. Yeah, I feel like Neil's a little too smart for me, maybe.
Me too. Agreed.
Whoa, dude. I mean, I'd have to sit down and read some of the lyrics like a book in order to. It's so hard to follow along and still listen to all the fantastic instrumentation because these guys are all just ridiculous players.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to listen to that and totally try to comprehend this crazy story that came out of Neil's head, or out of books that he read and mashed them together. I don't know. Anyway, on to Caress of Steel, September 24th, 1975. 5 songs. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
So this is Rush and Terry Brown again. That's going to be the same for quite a few albums here. This is the album that almost got them dropped from their label pretty much right away. It was not well received at all. Over the last 50 years, it's become more accepted, but at the time, it sounds like from what I read, obviously I was, 3 years old at this time, so I didn't really know. But it sounds like everyone was saying, kind of, what the F are you guys doing here? They called the tour the Down the Tubes tour because they knew they were in trouble. So yeah, the one thing about Rush is I gotta love their sense of humor. They're just it's great. Their stage setups, they do crazy stuff. I mean, they're a lot of fun. They really are, and they have no problems poking fun at themselves. They don't take it too seriously, which I love. But this album, I don't love. I don't have any favorites on this one. The Fountain of Lamneth is one that I would skip, but I don't think I hate any of this album, but I don't love any of it either. So I have this as a C-. This is the lowest I ranked any of these Rush albums. They're all good to me to some degree. So when I say I didn't care for it, it's just I don't care for it. Out of these 9, this is the worst one for me. But there's still obviously some elements in here. Like I said, these guys are such amazing players. You can't help but like some of the stuff that's here. It does get your attention. It's just the songs, they just aren't memorable and just don't stick with me. So I don't really love any of this. I had this at 9 as a C-. What did you think of Crest of Steel, Brian?
I do want to say hi to Rob. He's a friend I met from the Potter Than Hell podcast, became friends with us, and now friends with you guys. So
what's up, Rob?
I don't know what he was referring to with the 33%.
I think he's talking about when I said that Canada put that law into effect about the radio stations.
And how much?
Yeah, it had to be 33% Canadian artists. So thank you for helping us out. Rob is he's way on the west coast of Canada too. So I think it's a 3-hour time difference for him. So
like Vancouver.
Yeah, it is Vancouver actually. Yep, that's his team, the Canucks. So
nice. All right, well, welcome.
Yeah, I'm not totally where you are, H, but there's a couple highlights on here. But I'm close. Bastille Day is one of the great songs from All the World's a Stage. I love the performance on that, and I think it's still a cool album opener. That All the World's a Stage, I think, was really one of my first forays into just a live rock album. And man, just it's a great way to start if you want to go back to see.
Same for me.
To see
might be the actual first live album I heard from any band that I actually liked, because I was 7, I think, when we moved, and my buddy was playing this for me. So I mean, it was real early on. Yeah,
I had that and Foghat Live. So if you don't know what Foghat Live is, go ask your parents or grandparents.
I'm old enough to know what Foghat is.
Okay,
but I don't think I've heard their live album.
Yeah, no, that was literally one of the first 5 albums I had was Foghat Live. It's from like 77 or something. But anyway, I think I'm going bald. I mean, this is a rocker about a long-haired rocker losing his hair. I guess I don't know. This kind of bluesy Rush is back there again. Lakeside Park. It's a little bit of Zeppelin going on there with you got some of the new Rushisms in the chorus, I think. And then we get to the Necromancer. So Pink Floyd, Lord of the Rings, Rush. Let's drop some acid, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it had to be, right?
I mean, if there's ever like two songs where you are kind of intent on you don't want someone else to sort of like invade your space, like you don't want these people to be cool like you, then turn them on to the Necromancer and Fountain of Lamneth, I guess, because I mean, it's like every Rush nerd never left their mom's basement. It's all Lord of the Rings influence, self-indulgent. There's a cool guitar solo in Necromancer, some decent groove parts, but man, at 12 minutes, I don't know. You better be in the mood to go back to the first album. That's a callback. That's a callback there. Fountain of Lamneth,
Nice.
20 minutes long, and you're ending an album with this. Another quick funny story about this song too is, so this is like what is it? It ends up being 5 parts, right? So part 2, Didex and Narpets, I was reading, Neil Peart said, is actually an anagram of addicts and parents. And it's supposed to be like an argument between addicts and parents, and he used an anagram there. And but anyway, yeah, I don't know about this album in general. There's another good story. I've read I think all 4 of the Kiss biographies, and basically each one they all sort of rip each other to shreds for the most part. But I remember the Paul one specifically saying they were touring with Rush, and Getty or whoever had a cassette of basically all this whole Caress of Steel ready to go. It had not been released, and they played it for him, and Paul thought it was the worst thing that he'd ever heard in his entire life. He didn't get it at all, and they would always make jokes like, they're running around chasing groupies, and they'd go bang on their hotel door, and there's Rush. They're all sitting there, 3 of them reading a book,
Yeah, playing Dungeons and Dragons or something.
Yeah,
Totally.
but so I'll go ahead and put this one. I'm gonna put this 8th. I'll give it a C+, I guess.
All right. Yeah. To add to that, Rob said he thinks I'm going bald was written about Alex because he was worried about losing his hair. That's pretty funny. I think without that context, I just shake my head like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, what I thought was interesting is I've always kind of thought this, and it wasn't until I kind of was researching a little bit. I always wondered, Caress of Steel. If you look at the album cover, there's definitely no steel color. It should be like Caress of Bronze or whatever it is. But I guess that's due to a printing error. I guess they intended it to be steel, like a silvery. So I guess that kind of makes sense. I just always thought that was ridiculous. Like,
I guess that Rush from the first album too, behind Brian there, I think that was supposed to be red also, and it came out like magenta or whatever. Like that they must have had some problems with the printings of these albums. Maybe Canada didn't have a good place to print stuff. I don't know, but that's funny that in two of the 3 albums they had some printing color errors, and they're just like, well, I guess that's what we got. So
yeah, I guess so. So yeah, I'm more aligning with, I guess, H. I guess we all kind of have it at the bottom. Like this is just not for me. It's just too out there. It's too weird. I like Bastille Day, but after that, I don't like anything else off this. There are, I agree with Brian, parts of the Necromancer that has a cool groove, awesome drums, a couple cool guitar parts. It's just, it's 12 and a half minutes, and it's hard to sit through this. Like, to me, again, I don't get it, what they're kind of talking about, and just kind of goes over my head. So not a big fan of this. This is my number 9. This is kind of bottom of the barrel for me. I don't think I would ever listen to this again other than Bastille Day. And my only real, I guess, exposure to Rush until I pretty much met Brian, I would say, is the Chronicles Greatest Hits album that basically covered everything from their first album to somewhere, probably the stuff that we're doing today. Right around there is the cutoff. And Bastille Day was on there. And I think there's a Lakeside Park live version. But Bastille Day is the only thing that I can really get into. So easy number 9 for me. It wasn't even really that difficult. Just listening to all these albums, this is my least favorite. Just not for me. I have it as a D plus. I feel bad giving one of the greatest talented bands ever a D, but I don't like it. I can't get into it. So Caress of Steel, or as I always called it, Caress of Bronze, is number 9 and D plus. So not for Herd.
Caress of tarnished brass.
Yes.
Great. Unreal. All right, so on to 2112. This is March 1976. This is where they kind of took off. This is 6 songs, I guess. Songs. First song is 2112. It's 7 parts. So they all feel like smaller songs to me. So it's all 2112, but to me, it's not as drawn out as like the Fountain of Lamneth, say, which has parts also. This actually feels like it has different songs where they're just not separated, So this was a commercial breakthrough. This is Rush and Terry Brown once again. The record company, of course, after Caress of Steel and those 2 giant drawn out songs, the record company wanted more radio friendly songs like the first 2 albums. Like the previous hits, and the band sort of doubled down on the progressive stuff and did this whole 2112 thing, but they took a chance and rolled the dice and rolled the bones.
No, not yet.
Not yet, too soon. And they actually they came up roses on this one, so this really took off for them. It's just funny that the band the record company wants, shorter hit type songs, and they go out and write a 20-minute story song. It takes up all of one side of an album. But they compromised. They recorded some shorter songs inside too. Alex Lifeson is quoted, I read it, as saying this is the first time he felt like they fully achieved their sound as a band. And I fully, completely agree with that one. So, I mean, obviously he's in the band. He would know, but to me, hearing it, like you can hear elements of this in the first 3 albums, or not even so much the first one, but the 2 after that. But this one definitely, this is Rush. My favorites are Patches to Bangkok, other than the dee 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 dee. I don't like that. It's kind of corny, but anyway, it's in there. And the Twilight Zone. Tears for me is a skipper. That's the 4th song on side 2. I don't feel the greatness on this one that other people do, and that they love this album and worship this album. To me, I'm just not into the proggy stuff as much, and like that whole 2112 thing, like it does kind of, at least it feels like it's broken up into songs, but it still drags on for me. So, and the whole big story, it's hard to follow. I like when people can break it down for me and dumb it down. So hopefully Brian has, what this story is about. This is the kind of stuff I love to hear, but I can't.
Pressure's on.
Yeah. So anyway, I have this as a B-. I have this as a 6 in mid-tier. I know people are going to call me crazy, but it's not my favorite Rush album, but it's solid, obviously. But I do agree with Alex. It is the first time that the whole album, and not just a few songs, has the Rush sound to it. How did you like 2112, Brian?
2112 is an interesting study in the use of language, because we call it a concept album, but it's really a concept half album, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only really half of it.
Yeah.
And at that time, I don't know, unless you were, I guess, a little bit older than me and into, Pink Floyd, obviously Dark Side of the Moon and Another Brick in the Wall, which would come later. But this was kind of my first foray into, I guess, what was a concept album. And again, it's really only a half. The whole thing is really just sort of about artistic light, artistic vision, being able to be creative and not being controlled on your ideas. And basically, they had completely destroyed all music because they didn't want anybody to have the individualism, and it was totally gone. And everyone, the Federation controls everything. And then this guy stumbles upon this guitar that, was stashed away in some cave because somebody hid it or they buried it or whatever, kind of a borderline Planet of the Apes type of, a little bit of stuff going on there as well as kind of thematically. But I don't know, man. I don't know at that time again, I'm trying to figure out if I had actually heard this before Tom Sawyer, and I'm not positive if I had or not. So bear with me on that. But I had definitely never heard anything as heavy as that intro for Temples of Syrinx. Like that is like some of the heaviest crap. I mean, stuff that I'd ever heard. I mean, it blew some of the Sabbath stuff out of the water in terms of, just because it was more up tempo, I think.
Yeah.
But Geddy singing at his highest too, and yet still his heaviest. But there's a depth coming to his voice that's not quite that full blown shrill. And you talked a little bit about it, Age, but I'll go into more in Caress of Steel, and I know Bob thinks this too. Like the biggest thing on Caress of Steel is Geddy's vocals, just ripping your head off nonstop. Except for maybe I guess kind of towards the end there, but that with such heavy music behind it and the prog stuff and his voice grows and grows. But anyway, back to 2112, the idea of how the song's broken down, that there's the part called Discovery, and the guy finds the guitar, and I just love those parts where he's sort of figuring out how to play it. He's strumming, he's getting chords, he's getting better, he's building, he's getting better and better. There's more intricate rhythms, and I don't know, there's something very I don't know, raw about that whole idea of just finding something like that, and sort of thinking back to being a kid and someone who woodshedded in their room listening to this stuff, and or I kind of did it with keyboard stuff, trying to play other bands, never really with guitar. Like with Rush, one guitar, it was a tennis racket, right? I'm sitting there, I'm pretending to play Rush guitar on a tennis racket. That was sort of my foray into guitar. But going to side 2, Passage of Bangkok, great song, killer guitar harmonies. You're right, the intro is like I think that's politically incorrect to do that these days.
I guess.
I mean, that song Turning Japanese has the same intro, right? They got away with it.
Yeah, they do. There's a few of them, actually.
I mean, Twilight Zone, one of the coolest TV shows of all time, so what could be wrong? I love the chorus on that one. Lessons sort of builds off of Discovery from side 1, I think, a little bit. Tears, yeah, it's sort of a droney Rush ballad. I don't mind the chord choices. Something for Nothing, great opening guitar riff. We kind of go back into the super heavy, the Chipmunk on Acid Geddy vocals, and if you're not exhausted by the end of this one, then you'd probably need to cut down your caffeine, because you've already been blown away by side 1, and then to end up with Something for Nothing is pretty high point. I'll go ahead and put this at I've got it at number 3. I'm going to give it an A-.
All right, 2112. Brian likes it. I actually like it too. This is by far my favorite proggy album of theirs, I guess, in this realm of where we're at. I don't know, maybe it's the one like epic song that I understand what the story was, and like I was like following along. The beginning of it blows me away. The overture into the temple, that's so cool. I love the guitars. It's really, really good. I feel like this is kind of the first part where the bass is really starting to stand out to me too, where you're just dealing with a different kind of dude here. Like, dude is just phenomenal on the bass.
He really is, man.
But I mean, for as good as that the title track song is, what kind of sells me on this more than the other ones, Caress of Steel and the few coming up here, is I think the short songs really help it out for me here. Like you guys mentioned it, Passage to Bangkok's awesome. Twilight Zone is awesome. Something for Nothing is really, really good. I love side 2. For me, it's what really sets it above everything else. There are parts of the 2112 song that kind of get a little boring, drawn out a little bit for me, but the beginning and the end of it just rips. I don't know what part the actual solo is that Lifeson does, but it rips. It's awesome. I love it. So yeah, I mean, overall, it just really, really good record. It's probably one of the first ones that I went back to. I really, really liked it. Probably just because of its reputation. I'm like, oh, I got to hear what this is about. And I think also when I was really big, and I think Brian remembers this, we used to be really big into the Guitar Hero stuff. I know we used to kind of get together and do this. So in, I think 2 or 3, I think 3, Guitar Hero 3, they actually had where you could play the whole 2112 song, like through all the parts. It was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And it really made me, I guess, hear more of the specific guitar parts and things like that. So I love it. It's a really good album for me. It's definitely tops. It doesn't doesn't beat the era that I like that's coming up, but it's number 4 for me, which is strong. I have it above Rush, which I really like that as a rock album. This is just a slight tick above that. I recognize the classic album, and there's just enough digestible things on side 2 that it just really pushes this ahead. So I have it number 4, and I have it just as a B, kind of high to mid tier. I really appreciate this musicianship and the story and everything. So this is my one kind of prog Rush moment that I'm in. So 2112 number 4, B.
They really they hit a real stride here with production as well. Like that album sounds fantastic, and they kind of all of these do going forward. So that helps it too with all the atmospheric stuff. And I mean, it's just it all sounds really good. So now we got a Farewell to Kings, August 29th, 1977. This has got 6 songs on it, 5 songs and a super long story, which is part 1 of a 2-part story, which is finished on the next album, Hemispheres. This is Rush and Terry Brown again. They expanded their sound using more synthesizers and different instruments on this album. This is the first album they recorded outside of Canada. It was recorded in Wales at the end of their first European tour. It went so well for them for 2112 over there. They just decided they just weren't going to come home. They wanted to keep the momentum and keep working. So they recorded this out there. I guess Terry Brown found the studio. He said, "You guys are going to love this studio." And they went out there and they just stayed near there, and they were in there all the time. But yeah, it was recorded in Wales, and the band they're big fans of UK rock music, hard rock music too. So which you heard that obviously the Led Zeppelin influence in the first couple albums a lot. That they were big fans of those bands, and they always wanted to record in the UK. So that they loved the fact that they did really well over there. They were super happy about that. They considered All the World's a Stage, which is the live album for 2112, the end of chapter 1 of the band, and they wanted to expand their sound. So they used more synthesizers and more different instruments. They all play multiple instruments on this album. They added all kinds of stuff in here to really fill out the sound. Getty stated this is a pivotal record for him in his musical development, as he learned a lot and was always learning during this time, playing multiple instruments on stage, just doing all kinds of stuff and playing around. And he felt like this is where he really started to get good at some of those other things, and putting them on the album. Cygnus X1, Book 1. The Voyage is a story track that it ends on a kind of a cliffhanger, I guess. I don't really follow the story. I think it's about a black hole and space travel and whatnot, but it concludes on the next album, like I said. This is where Xanadu is. Xanadu and Close to the Heart became live crowd favorites from this album that they played for many years. My favorite song on this one is Closer to the Heart. Also, I know that's the hit here, but it's got such a great melody, and it sticks in my head. Like I'll be humming that song 3 days from now. It's just I can't. There's a few of their songs like that, but that one, man, it really really sticks in there for me. I didn't really care for the Cygnus, the story song. I don't mind some of their progressive stuff, but this I particularly didn't like as much. It's real experimental, and it's kind of all over the place. And I'm like, where is this going? There's multiple times I'm looking to see how much time is left in the song, and I'm like, I don't know. And it helps that it's the last song on the album too, so it's an easy skip, I guess. But I mean, I made myself listen to it, but there was multiple times where I'm like, can I just go on to the next one? So I have this as a C, number 7. This is pretty much, it's kind of middle of the road for me. There's nothing that really grabs me other than Closer to the Heart. But the Closer to the Heart's really short. It's 2 minutes. It's less than 3 minutes long out of this, 45-minute album. But yeah, I do love that song. So Cygnus is just kind of too all over the place. But anyway, I have this as a mid-tier, like number 7, solid C. What did you think of, Brian? Farewell to
So
King.
some of your points are not that far off of mine, but some of them, yeah. So,
Yeah, that's why
title,
you're here, man.
yeah,
I'll
title,
just, I agree with Bob. I agree with Barrett. I
yeah,
agree with Bob. Okay, next album. Like,
yeah.
that wouldn't be any fun.
Title track, cool acoustic intro. And the first thing you notice, and we kind of, and Bob touched on the fact the songs were shorter on the side two of 2112, but also, let's pick up on the fact that his vocals are getting cleaner and easier to understand what's going on vocally and what he's singing. And we start to see that the vocals are getting cleaner here as well. We can start to grasp the lyrics. Xanadu, this is the quintessential apex of early Rush. It absolutely does not get any better than this. If you want hard rock, if you want 70s rock, if you want 70s prog rock in general, whatever the hell you want to call it, short of Tom Sawyer and maybe Spirit of Radio, this is the quintessential Rush song of all time with that circular guitar riff. Whenever those bells start chiming and I hear those birds chirping away in the background and I know that guitar riff is coming, like, it's just a masterpiece. And let's just acknowledge once and for all that Slash completely stole Sweet Child of Mine off of this riff. Okay. Let's not pretend anymore. I don't know that anyone's ever really said it, or they dance around it, but this is Sweet Child of Mine is basically Xanadu twisted around just a tad. I mean, it's that I love that freaking guitar riff. I mean, the song gives me chills. I love the fact that it's, I don't know, 11, 12 minutes long, but it feels like it goes by so freaking fast because I love every single facet of it. The build up to it, the chorus is amazing. The guitar solo is awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 11 minutes.
No, it doesn't at all. It's just one of the greatest rock songs I think ever, Xanadu. And Closer to the Heart, man, 40 years staple. I don't think they ever did a show where they didn't play this one. It's beautiful melody. I can see why you run around humming it. The vocal performance from Geddy. It's definitely, it's easily his best vocal to date on this song. I'm going to agree with you towards the end here. We sort of fall off a little bit. Cinderella Man, there's a cool bass line. So the drumming's cool in that one. Great guitar solo. Man, when you come out of the box with those first three songs, I don't know. To keep the momentum going is and Rush is capable of doing it, as we find out later. But Madrigal kind of sounds a little dated at this point. The keyboard's a little bit hokey. And I will actually agree with you on Cygnus Book 1, The Voyage. Never been like a massive fan of this one. It's just there's not enough melody here. There's not enough parts that grab me, and I don't want to give away, but it gets better when we get to Book 2. Let's just say that. So
totally agree.
But yeah,
you said it way better than I did.
yeah. So you'll tip it off next anyway. But so yeah, it's tough, man, because the first three on this are just so damn good. Cinderella Man, I'll say is pretty good, but the last two, I'm not one of those, like I said, I tried to preface, I'm not one of those super nerd fanboy guys that's just going to sit here and tell you that I listened to every single thing they ever did and I thought it was all amazing, because that's, that's just not me. I'll go ahead and settle this one in, I guess, at 6. And I'm going to have to give it a B just based off of the first three songs for sure.
It's funny we were talking about Xanadu and how it doesn't feel 11 minutes. It's actually longer than Cygnus X1. But Cygnus X1, I'm looking down to when it's going to end.
Yep.
And Xanadu, like, you can't believe it's, like, man, that was 11 minutes. Like, wow. So fun.
Yeah, I hear you. And I'm actually right along with you guys. It's pretty much a half album for me. I love the first three songs, just like you guys. It's Farewell to Kings. It's a little slow going, but with the acoustic beginning, but once it kicks in, that through Xanadu to Closer to the Heart, man, it's just awesome. I actually, just listening to these, because I haven't listened to this album very much, but just kind of going through, I was like, this album's like climbing up my ranks. I'm like, man, this is way better than I thought. But then Cinderella Man is okay. Madrigal it's like a space filler. Like, to me, it's whatever. But Cygnus, I'm with you guys. I don't get it. To me, it just goes right over my head. But definitely have notes here. Exactly what Brian was saying. Geddy Lee's voice is finally to a point where it's like, okay, here we go. And that's probably why, Closer to the Heart is such a big radio song and such a big part of it. Just people love that song. They sing to it. It's just so good. I love it. Just like you guys. Xanadu's phenomenal. Love it. So, I'm right along with you guys. It was kind of like right alongside Fly By Night to me, 6, 7. I settled in at 7, but we're all kind of right there with a C. Probably right in the middle of their stuff. Just when it hits, it hits. When it doesn't, I'm just ready to go to the next one. So, unfortunately, just they went a little too, I guess, out of my purview later on in the album. But sounds like we're all kind of like right on the same spot on this one. So, yeah, I have it number 7 and a C for Farewell to Kings.
Nice. All right, Hemispheres, October 24th, 1978. They recorded both these albums in the same place. I feel like, there's part 2 of the story on here, Cygnus. So I feel like this is kind of more of the same from them. This Rush and Terry Brown again. Geddy Lee, I guess, said that recording this in the States never really appealed to them. And they were, like I said, influenced by mostly UK acts. So that's where they really wanted to do this. They also are big fans of Yes, which makes a lot of sense with the progginess of Yes, and that they mixed the tracks at Advision Studios, where Yes recorded the band's Rush's favorite albums. So they definitely got a kick out of working there too. Geddy said in 2018 that looking back on this album that this took me a minute to wrap my head around too. They greatly underestimated the amount of overachievement they were shooting for. Like, I had to think about that for a minute. Greatly underestimated the amount of overachievement they were shooting for. So I'm still not sure I know exactly what that means. Cygnus X1 Book 2 concludes the Cygnus story. It's 18 minutes long to open the album. As you remember, Cygnus Part 1 was at the end of the previous album. You can hear elements of future songs in here for sure. For example, around the 3-minute mark, you'll hear some Red Barchetta in there, some Red Barchetta similarities. And around the 9.5-minute mark, you can hear some Free Will in there as well. So I did pick up on those. And then when I heard, I was like, what, let me go back and see where these exactly are, because it's 18 minutes long. So if you wanted to go back, that's where you can find definitely some Easter eggs for future songs. But this I liked a lot more than Cygnus Part 1, as we were talking about. This is more cohesive. There's more melody in there. It doesn't feel so experimental. And but there's only 3 other songs on this album, with the last one, La Villa Strangiato, being over 9 minutes long as well, and the band's first all instrumental song. It's a really diverse song that really just, it kind of shows off how great of players that they have been and have become. It's really top of their game stuff there. It's really long, and it's instrumental, but man, they're all just showing off. They're so good. My favorites on here are Circumstances. That's the only one. My skippers are nothing really of the other stuff, other than the middle of the trees. That one gets a little fantastical and weird, so I didn't really care for that song. So if I was going to skip one, other than that, though, that would be the only one I would skip. So this is a solid middle of the road album for me. Also, I have this as a C. I like Cygnus Book 2, as I said, a little bit more. This one, it doesn't have that one song that I like Closer to the Heart, that just really sticks with me. So that's the only reason I would rank, the album before Farewell to Kings over this one. But they're really kind of the same to me. So what did you think of Hemispheres, Brian?
Yeah, one of those things, like we're saying, the sequel is sometimes better than the original, like Empire Strikes Back. I like the second Spider-Man better. Tyler Perry's Boo 2, Medea Halloween, definitely better than the original.
Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah. Now, in that case, I don't know.
Back to the Future 2.
Yeah, no.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is
Airplane 2.
Airplane 2. Hey, man, as long as if it has any airplane in it, it's going to be amazing. But man, the production is better on this one. I mean, it doesn't even seem like, I don't see how these two are even linked together when you put them together musically. I mean, there's so many cool riffs in this one. Great, interesting musical passages. I love the harmonics on the guitar. some subtle use of keys here and there to support various parts. We're starting to get into more and more keyboards as we go on. We know that. I love that mellow vocal part with just the keys behind it, and then it kind of crescendo as we sort of go back to a little bit of the old school. They used to call him the Chipmunk on Acid Getty voice, right?
Yeah.
And an 18-minute opener, and honestly, this is really sort of the last time we kind of get this era of Rush. Really, is this 18-minute opus that is Cygnus 2, and I just love the music on this one. I mean, you hear a song like Cygnus 2 and La Villa Strangata we're going to get to, and you can see why people like Mike Portnoy and John Petrucci and I don't know, maybe even like a Chris DeGarmo picked up their instrument and started to do what they did, because I guarantee you they heard this kind of stuff. It's so obvious in the influences of some of those bands like that. People in Fate's Warning, for instance. But Circumstances, cool guitar riffs in this one. We got the super high Getty vocals again. At one point we go into it's sort of Xanadu-ish, I guess, but it's like the Minstrel by the Castle Wall Rush. There's a xylophone or something at one point going on with the synthesizer. I don't know. It gets a little funky, but then there's great guitar work again. The Trees, it's similar to Closer to the Heart, kind of always a live staple. It's a political song for sure. But if they ever did one, this is definitely it in a nutshell. But yeah, man, La Villa, I don't know if you call it, I guess it would be La Villa Strangiato. This is really the granddaddy of them all for Rush fans. I mean, there's everything under the sun, musician wise in here and playing style wise. And if you really want to experience this truly, you need to hear the live version or this version, but throw your headphones on. You need to hear everything panning back and forth in stereo. Everything is swirling around. You don't want to miss a single note that's going on in this incredible musical masterpiece. And I mean, this is one of the ones where the fans lose their shit every time they play it. Right? Every so-called air drummers out there. I mean, forget Tom Sawyer. Of course, they're doing it, but on this one, they're all trying to air drum and air guitar and air bass and outdo each other. It's just like a giant dork fest. But but it's still a highlight of any Rush show whenever they bust this out. But yeah, so Hemispheres, I'm gonna put it at number 5. I'm gonna give it a B+.
All right. Wow. So I'm going to asterisk this by saying I don't like this album, but I'm going to say I get it. I get where everybody's coming from, why you like it. I get
it's the steroids, isn't it? You got to put an asterisk because of the steroids, right?
Maybe. I don't know, but
yeah, Barry Bonds is never good.
I think it can be a tough listen. I'm not going to disagree on that.
I appreciate it, like listening to it, and I do listen to the headphone. Like I've listened to all these albums with headphones. I agree with Brian. You almost have to with something like this, but man, it is hard. So I guess for me, it's just really hard to not, I guess, cling to a song. There's so much going on, so many parts. Like I don't put this album on and then afterwards I'm like, man, I got to go back and listen to track 1 or track 2 or what. Like I really like that. Like I don't even remember what I listened to when I listened to this. So I appreciate it. I think that these guys sound phenomenal. Obviously you can't take anything away from the guitar parts, the bass parts, the drum parts. The guys are so good. But for me personally, this is not for me. I think it's way better to me than Caress of Bronze because of it just sounds better. The production is way better. It just sounds good. I agree with Brian. I actually have the live album where they were doing live in Cleveland, where they did the anniversary of one of the next few albums that we're going to do. And they have the live version of that. And I'm sure they have it on other ones. I just haven't heard the live albums, but La Villa Strangiato live is phenomenal. So good. But this album, it's not for me. It's better than Caress of Steel. It's number 8. It's a C minus probably, just because of the identification with the songs. And The Trees, if we're going to count that as a single, probably my least favorite single of theirs. It just doesn't do it for me. Circumstances is probably the one highlight. I wouldn't even say it's one that I really like. It's one that I wouldn't skip for sure. But yeah, number 8, C-, Hemispheres. I appreciate it. I just don't think I'll ever listen to it again, probably in its entirety, just the way it is, especially with the stuff coming up, in which I think I'm going to kick it over to Brian to do the intro for.
What? I wasn't doing a good enough job.
You weren't. You're fired, bro. Sorry.
Damn it.
But wait, before I pass it over to Brian, I do want to say hello to Aaron Taft, who wanted to share that Xanadu is probably his favorite Rush song. Welcome, Aaron. Appreciate you jumping on. And Xanadu, we all love that tune for sure also. So Rob also says Hemispheres is a top 3 Rush album for him. So he's more along the lines with you, Brian, not so much with me. But thanks again, Rob, for listening. I'll pass it over to Brian. Brian, what do you got for the next record?
Yeah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Permanent Waves. 45 years old, this album. January 14th, today.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Is that a weird coincidence or what?
Good timing.
Yeah.
That's why you wanted to push it back a week, wasn't it?
That's why I wanted to take this one so I could sing happy birthday to it.
Well, thank you. We
thank you.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to benefit from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy.
I pulled out some interesting quotes because this starts... So if we count the first album sort of as its own entity, right, that we'll call that the first phase of Rush, and we'll call the second phase Fly By Night up to Hemispheres, or we can call that one, however you want to do it. But this is the beginning of the next phase of Rush. And I found some interesting stuff regarding this. And I was always curious about this because of the fact they did change their sound so much. So during Hemispheres, they were burned out. They were fried. They worked all night. They slept all day. And kind of like what H was saying was like, man, we just kept trying to sort of top ourselves, right? And it's like, it was the making that they said it was the album that wouldn't end. Everything about that was exceedingly difficult. We kept trying to top ourselves. We felt like we lost I guess because they thought it was kind of got to be sort of self-indulgent. I can't talk. They said they were actually becoming formulaic. This epic long side pieces, it's like, okay, here we have the giant thing, the overtures, we have a theme here, we repeat the theme, we do a breakdown, blah, blah, blah. They thought they were repeating themselves by kind of getting to be so out there progressive wise. So then they decided, conscious decision, we are going to shift directions. They basically said, hey, how can we do this stuff? And I think the quote was in 7-minute time frames, put a limit on what we're doing and still keep it tuneful, interesting, and complex. That was their goal, they said. So they went into Le Studio in Morin Heights, Quebec, Canada, which is where I believe they actually make the next 3 albums. This is Terry Brown again. And this recording facility is built on one side of a lake, and where they actually stayed was on the other side. So having to get there was a decent walk through the woods, or you could actually, I guess, take a canoe or rowboat over there. They said there's massive windows overlooking the lake in the studio. So it's not like some of those controlled environments. And like, I don't know, one of the most painful movies I've ever watched is the Metallica, the Some Kind of Monster. And watching them try to create an album like that, just everyone's sort of cramped in there and mad at each other. And like, there's nothing to inspire you about that, right? You're sort of in this concrete, enclave, just sort of all packed in here. Whereas this Rush thing, hey man, we can go outside, we can sort of take stuff in. We have a great view, it's just inspiring, and it really comes across in this album. I think that just the setting and where they actually went to write and record all this stuff.
There's a lot of writings out there of different songs that they recorded and how Neil would write lyrics by an outdoor fire by his chalet. Like that's the kind of stuff that it's a real good, like, creative space. There's all kinds of stories of him writing songs like that. So, man,
I would just love to be a fly on the wall during that process, just to see how this stuff gets done.
My goodness.
But it's like, anyway, so they were just, they said they were more connected to their families. They were only like a couple hours away if they wanted to see them, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it was just an invigorating vibe, and the album is like they said, it's spontaneous. It reflects that energy, that new found vibe of, hey, we're going to do this. And, we start off with Spirit of Radio. I mean, this is sort of the song that officially kind of they said launched them into being a kind of a full blown headliner at that point. Just, we're still a year off from Tom Sawyer and everything, but I don't know. There's not that many more iconic opening riffs from a rock song from this era. I mean, it's just, and right off the bat, Geddy's voice, it's just, I mean, smooth as silk, man. Super clean, can understand basically pretty much every word he's saying. I mean, it's a clinic in just songwriting and progressive songwriting and making a hit song too. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and then you go right, and then you're going to go into Free Will. You haven't even had time to catch your breath, and here's Free Will, and this is probably the most radio-friendly tune they've ever done. I mean, no disrespect to Spirit of Radio, which actually has the word radio in it, right? I mean, so right off the bat, I mean, two of their most iconic songs come back to back after, we're into, what are we, album number 7
of
their career, and it's just a band that just knows, it's just grown musically, and you can just tell they're tighter, and they just know what they want to be. And then we go into Jacob's Ladder. This is one of, I always joke with Bob about movies. I like movies that have a slow burn, and this is a slow burn, man. This song just screams it to me. I mean, it settles in nicely. It's a dark, brooding thing. I mean, after two of their most upbeat songs they've ever had, right?
Yeah.
But there's that cool middle synth section with the cool vocal effects, and then like just some killer riffs and syncopated drum stuff coming on from Neil Peart, towards the end. Entre Nous. I looked this up it does. It means between ourselves and confidence, which fits with the chorus actually. We get a happy rush here again. It's happy time. Perfect amount of synth behind Alex playing those broken chords. It's into different strings, a little bit of folky Geddy again, but there's some. This one's the one song I don't think I've ever done this on. They have a little bit of I guess it's a Rhodes piano. It's some kind of funky electric piano that plays some parts, and I've never heard that in any Rush song ever in my entire life. So, but there's a great guitar solo to fade out. Natural Science, a bit of a nod back to the old days. It's a 9-minute song, but if you cut out, really, it's I think, what is it? The end is 20. It's either the end or the beginning. Is like all that combined is like 1 minute plus of sort of sound effects. So it's really only an 8-minute song. Harkens back a little bit to the prog days, but they keep it, like I said, by trimming it off with those intros. And I just think it's a great song. I don't know that it's maybe the one song that sort of feels a little bit out of place because they kind of have grown sort of musically away from this sort of style. But you get enough melody in there, and they keep it to that 8 minutes. That man, Permanent Waves. I mean, just you talk about a band just kind of all of a sudden deciding, we're changing. This is the way we're going, and come along for the ride because it's going to be great. I put this in at number 4. I'll give it an A-.
All right. Yeah. Permanent Waves is right down my alley. This is good stuff. This is where it all changes for me. Again, there's a lot of stuff that I like early on in their catalog, but it's a lot of, I appreciate it. This is cool what they're doing with the instruments. This is the part where it's like song after song. I'm like, I like this song. I like this song. I like this song. This is great. Brian said it. Spirit of the Radio, phenomenal. Free Will, I think, is like that midsection where it slows down and they break down. Probably the best Alex solo he's ever done, and just my opinion. Just it's a radio friendly rock song that's got a sweet breakdown guitar solo in the middle of it. I'm Mr. Guitar Solo. That I seek these out in these songs. So, it's peak performance. And I'm surprised Brian really didn't mention it much, but man, the production of this record is silk. It's just amazing. You mentioned Geddy's voice. Just the production, it sounds so good. They hit a new leaf with Hemispheres, but man, this is production wise is so good. It's just the start of where they sound so good. It sounds so big, especially in headphones. I love it. I love every song off of this record. Even Natural Science, which is usually not really my thing with the different parts and things like that. But man, it's a killer song. I love it. Every song on this is good. It kind of went back and forth 2 or 3. I kind of landed on 3. So I'm going to rank it number 3rd overall, and I also have it A-. So I have 3 albums that are in the A range for me. Permanent Waves is awesome. Absolutely love it. What did you think, Mr. H? Permanent Waves.
I really like this album too. I like the more concise arrangements and the radio friendly songs a lot more than the progressive stuff. Although Jacob's Ladder and Natural Science are a little progressive still, so there's still a little bit left over there, but it's about to be completely eradicated.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a little left over there. But those are very listenable songs for me. Also, I wouldn't even think of skipping them. This is where I'll talk about Getty's vocal delivery. You guys have both mentioned it. He has a way more restrained vocal delivery on this album, which I like much more than his high register, almost shrill vocals, which almost like stings your eardrums, where I almost felt like sometimes like when I hear him on the earlier, I was like, I have to reach for the volume knob because I'm like, oh man, like why? It's just I don't like that sound, and it's just it turns me and a lot of others off. I think that was kind of holding them back, as far as popularity goes. Like yes, they wrote different songs here, but they have good songs earlier too that are that are short and radio friendly, but just I don't feel like people really gravitated to it as much because the vocals. If there's one criticism I have of Rush is some of Getty's vocal delivery and that shrillness. Oh man, it's just rough on the ears, but it's more restrained here and for a while, pretty much from here on out. I mean, there's some unbelievable stuff here. Spirit of Radio. I love that song. I always have. It gets into police-ish reggae there in the middle. I mean, it's fantastic. What a great song, and it just shows their versatility range that they can do anything. These guys, they're magic. Free Will is amazing. There's no skippers on here for me. I really like the first 2 songs a lot, obviously, but the rest of it's really good too. I have it as number 4, and I have this as a B. But like I said, these top 4, man, it starts getting close here because these are all really really good albums.
Yep, agreed. All right, Brian, what do we got next? You
gonna sing Happy Birthday to this
Sorry,
one?
I had to get mute off there.
That's okay. I was like, do you need to know what one's next? Because
yeah, I mean, just a little album we like to call Moving Pictures. I'm sure no one's ever heard of this one.
Never.
Okay, would it surprise you to know that from what I can gather, this album has only sold 5.7 million copies. Do we buy that? Does that seem low?
Well, I bought it, so
I bought it too.
Yeah.
I have a couple copies of it, but
does that seem low or no?
It does seem low.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Does
that include the reissues of it and stuff? Too?
I don't know if that includes the reissue. I was looking up when they did one of the. So I bought the 40th. I bought the 40th reissue thing, and I kind of forgot when I told Bob about this. Oh, I forgot. There's stuff in there I want to reference, and I kind of forgot. The biggest bummer about that 40th reissue thing is the liner notes. There's really not the engineer or the guys talking about the making of it. It's like, okay, Les Claypool,
okay,
dude from Mastodon, and there's some interesting quotes, but it's just like I want a full breakdown. And there's a great live show from 1981, I think in Toronto, Maple Leaf Gardens or whatever. It's a full like six album, whatever, concert or whatever in there, which is very cool, but I can't listen to because I don't have a record player. But I can look at it, which is really cool. But there's a cool booklet in there too. But anyway, there had not been to that point a song that I heard the beginning of that just literally gave me chills until I heard Tom Sawyer.
Yes.
And I can distinctly remember because I heard it and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then there was this roller rink in St. Louis we would go to, and 13-year-old Hendrickson. I'm not going to lie. Well, kids these days don't know what Coke bottles are, right? But I had Coke bottle glasses. I mean, they were about this thick, right? Roughly, it was, and I was probably 5. I was probably as tall as I am now because I got kind of tall between I think 8th and 9th grade. So everyone else kind of got tall later. So I'm like 5'11", 106 pounds, dripping wet or whatever. And but that was like the one song that came on when you're out there roller skating. You're like, oh yeah, man, you do like Shoot the Moon where you stick your leg out, you like hold your leg. And I wasn't like some great roller skater, so but I just remember that
He knows the
Yeah.
positions.
yeah, man. So it's
man.
like
If you do a double axel.
so before
man.
that, the big thing to like skate to was like the disco version of the Star Wars theme. Like that was the thing that got everyone pumping, you know, like but yeah, man. I mean, this album shot up to number 3, 5.7 million albums and still going. So I'm going to say it's probably more than that. Alex said it came together quickly and was fun. Now even though they did 10 weeks, 12 hours a day, including the mixing. But this is, you know, the band is on to something on how to craft these songs. And something interesting about Alex Lifeson, he said he's painted as this guy that, you know, he hates synthesizers, whatever. And he kind of insists today, he said, you know, I was never down on using keyboards. You know, he said what got for me was when we started using keyboards and bass pedals and things like that. To basically build our sound as opposed to sort of fill out the sound, you know. I didn't.
It kind of steals his melodies off of the guitar, right? Like a lot of the keyboard stuff is stuff that you'd think that he would play.
Not so much on this album, but once we get to Signals,
sometimes
maybe, yeah. But I mean, yeah, Tom.
Not that it's overshadowed. It's just it kind of takes some of what he would have played and kind of puts him in the background, where he's just playing chords and the melodies coming from the keyboard.
Yeah, it's the way they space them out is interesting because most bands that didn't use keyboards the way Rush did,
right?
They were pretty innovative in the sounds and stuff. But man, I mean, Tom Sawyer. I mean, there's nothing on here that you go, oh, that's not an epic song, you know. I mean, Tom Sawyer, like we just talked about. I mean, everyone that's the most iconic, probably air drumming song of all time. Like we said, everyone sits there and does all that, and it's interesting hearing Neil kind of talk about how it's like, okay, well they had the bones of it, they practiced it, and it was like one of those, the more they played it, he just kept adding and coming up and changing and adding and constantly changing.
I read that same story. That's awesome.
Yeah, just how it's like, you know, this wasn't like I woke up one day and this is how it's going to be.
It's not, he didn't have all the notes written out of how he was going to do this solo, you know. It just kind of happened, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
awesome.
They would and worked on this, you know. And but Red Barchetta, I mean, that do. I mean, I still get chills when I hear that intro, you know. I mean, YYZ. I mean, that's the greatest thing about YYZ is the fact that it is only 4.5 minutes. Like it's a killer instrumental, but if it's any longer than that, it's probably not that great. But they have the perfect length on that one. It's just the way the keyboards support it. I mean, Limelight. There is, you know, we talk about iconic guitar opening riffs. I mean, there's another one right there. You know. I mean, Alex, you know, kind of has a market on some of that stuff. Camera, I think, is very overlooked sometimes. You know, if Jacob's Ladder is a slow burn, this is like a slow motion campfire on mushrooms or something. I mean, one of the interesting things on Les Claypool liner notes, he said, if you've ever seen an 80s sci-fi or B horror movie, that eerie, he calls it the eerie duck quack synth voice, the intro for Camera Eye, that you know, they do that whole thing. And that whole thing builds and builds, and the Camera Eye, I think, is, what is it, around a 12-13 minute song or somewhere around there.
10:58.
Okay. But again, to me, it's never one of those that felt that long, just because I know every little nuance and I can't wait for the next part. But then I'm like kind of bummed that the part that I loved is gone, you know. It goes into another one. Witch Hunt, I absolutely love the powered chord guitars on that, man. So haunting and heavy. And then you know, into Vital Signs, and there was an interesting quote. He said something about, you know, they bury the song at the end. You know, it's got all this squelchy keyboards, the synths, and you talk about reggae. I mean, there's a lot of Police synchronicity before synchronicity really kind of was a thing. You know, and they were very conscious is not the word, but they were very upfront about being big fans of the Police and that style and talking about Alex playing, it really kind of did sort of evolve into sort of playing that way of Andy Summers. A lot of reggae, a little less Jimmy Page for sure, but still some prog elements. But and then Neil even says, like, you know, we threw that whole part in there where it says everybody got to deviate from the norm, which is kind of their whole their whole thing is slowly changing and evolving and constantly trying to, sort of trying new things, but still being rushed somehow. But yeah, I mean, 7 songs. I mean, I don't know it. I think I told Bob before, I thought that maybe the greatest actual rock and roll album of all time is maybe Back in Black, and the greatest rock album of all time could possibly be Moving Pictures, depending on how you want to qualify it. They're both got to be top 5 for me. So yeah, Moving Pictures, not a bad record.
Not bad.
Bad at
So
all.
where do you have it ranked? I'm just curious.
I actually put it 10th after the first one. No, it's number 1, and it's an A+. So it's very rare the A+ comes out, and that's got to be an A+.
Gotcha. Yeah, Moving Pictures is all right, I guess. So one thing I will say is I consider myself pretty lucky. So this came out the year I was born, just to kind of show my age. So 1981, that's the year of your herd. I
Chinese calendar, the year of the herd.
the year of the herd. Yes.
I heard you were born that year.
Yes, you heard correct. Obviously, everybody's heard of Tom Sawyer. Everybody's heard of Limelight. I heard that on the radio a billion times before I even knew who Rush was. But I kind of hit a point, maybe in my 20s, where I went back and discovered this album. So it existed for a long time, and then I found it, and I was like, getting to listen to it the first time after Hendrickson probably listened to it, I don't know, probably 5 trillion times, and Mr. H probably 5 trillion times.
Oh man.
But for me, it's like I just got to I've only really known this album for the last 15 years of my life. So I still enjoy listening to it. The forever conversation of, man, like, if you skip this song, are you tired of it? Yeah, we're not going to hold this band, like, negatively because they're overplayed, but these songs are not overplayed for me because I don't know them all that long. Like,
in some cases it doesn't matter, Bob.
It should. I get it.
I mean,
I
could hear Tom Sawyer another 5 billion times and I'll never get sick of it ever.
Totally get it.
Ever.
But for me, they're not 30, 40, 50 years of listening to this song.
Right.
It's still newer. So to me, what kind of does it for me with this album is the songs are catchy, they're listenable, they're radio songs. Most of them are radio friendly, but yet every song you're in a soundscape of all this wall of sounds, and it's amazing. It's like Brian said, he gets goosebumps when he hears the intros of these songs. To me, it's every song they have like a breakdown part or a part where it changes it's either the pace of the song or just the whole direction of the song. It just hits like a crescendo. Like with Red Barchetta, it's the dun 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 dun, dun. Like, to me, that's when I get goosebumps. It's like the song is just like crescendoing to that. YYZ, same thing. They're going crazy, and then where Lifeson hits his solo, and then it hits a duh, and then all of a sudden all these just wall of sound hit you. It's just phenomenal. Camera Eye does the same thing. There's like a point in the middle of it where it's just like the way that they use these synthesizers. It's just a wall of sound that hits you, and it's overwhelming. I love this album. I don't want to listen to this album unless I got the headphones on and I got it cranked like super high. So needless to say, Moving Pictures, I still grow more loving it every single time I listen to it. It's phenomenal. No skips. Not only do I not skip it, like, I would smack anybody's hand that would want to change any part of this song, any part of this album. So I'm with you, Brian. A+, number 1, not a weak note in it. It just, from the second it starts to the moment it ends, is perfection. This is the Rush album, as far as I'm concerned. What do you got, Mr. H? What do you think of Moving Pictures?
Oh, absolute garbage. It's
piece of crap.
Man. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's the production on this is just outstanding too. I mean, everything is just at the right level, and it's Tom Sawyer, just like exactly what Brian said. And I know you saw me shaking my head over here, or nodding my head, but just that right at the beginning of Tom Sawyer, it makes the hair stand up on my arms and dance. Like it's like immediate, like, oh man, this is so good. It's just, and it's immediate. There's no building up to it. It's just boom. And from the first sound of that through this whole album is ridiculous. It's so good. That song in particular, though, it's one of my favorite songs ever by anyone. I think it's a song I'll never turn off, no matter how many times I've heard it. As I just said, it's one of the best sounding songs production wise I think I've ever heard. I mean, everything swirls around, like you said. You got to have the headphones on. I mean, it's just, it can't be too loud. It's just, oh my god. You got solos from all three of the band members in the middle there. You got a keyboard solo and then a great guitar solo leading into the drum fill solo that's just is probably the most attempted to duplicate other than maybe In the Air Tonight, but this is that times 4, so it's just so good. It's absolute masterclass. 4 minutes and 36 seconds of perfection. So good. Anyway, I love this album. You guys hit all the nails, I just keep kicking the horse, but it's going to kick me back here sooner or later. So I love Tom Sawyer, Rib Barchetta, Limelight. No skippers. The first half of it is better than the second half of it for me, but I like all those songs too. This is an A. This is easily the best of the first 9 for me. And I think we'd probably look crazy, or people look at you sideways if you didn't have this one at least near the top of Rush's catalog. It's just unbelievable.
All right, Brian, we're down to our last record. Well, what do you think?
One last point on Tom Sawyer. Had you ever heard a drum sound like that? Because you got, like you said, you got the beer, but you got the like that snare drum. I don't know, that snare drum, the pop and the Rice Krispie, the snap, crackle, and pop of that snare just like blew your ear off. Like I never heard drums sound like this before,
Yeah.
And I don't think it was any kind of studio trickery. It was just knowing how to mic an incredible drummer who knows how to hit the drums,
Unbelievable.
But,
yeah.
I'm still drooling over Moving Pictures. I know.
Masterclass. Like the whole thing, everything about it. Like there's no nothing, there's no weakness in there. Everything about the song, everything is fantastic. And the whole album, really.
All right, we go on to our last album, and I would argue the last album of this kind of period of the band. And this is the last album Terry Brown produced, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's correct.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, the beginning of 1982, they went back to, I think, the same place. Terry Brown pre-production. The place was completely empty. It was like a ski. I don't know if this is the same place. He said it was completely empty. It was like The Shining. They locked themselves in there for a month and rehearsed and finished songs for the album. So I don't know if this is the same. I thought they were at the same place all 3 times. I might have to double check that later. But he said they have a rule that they typically
at Le Studio. Yeah,
yes,
same place. Yep.
Okay, same one. That's what I thought. Yeah. So they have a rule that they do not listen to any outside music at all when they're working on a record, which makes sense, I think.
Wow, I never heard that.
Yeah, I've heard Alex talk before. Like they've asked him about if he ever listens to bands or like listens to stuff after concerts, and he's like, "Are you insane? Like the last thing I want to do is listen to any music after being up there for 3 hours with Neil Peart bashing behind me or whatever." Kind of half jokingly, but. Yeah, it Signals, and I'm full disclosure here. When this first came out, I kind of skipped it, which is very weird because I was so in love with Moving Pictures. It sort of came out, and I was like, I didn't really listen to it much, and I sort of moved right into what's going to start our next phase, Grace Under Pressure. And I came back to this, and I was like, man, what the hell was I thinking? How did I miss this? I absolutely love Signals. In some ways, I think it's a more interesting album than Moving Pictures. I think some of the sounds are able to weave in, and some of the styles. I think writing wise, it's a little more in depth, and it's hard. I was very close to putting this number 1. This is how much I love Signals.
Wow,
which sounds like total blasphemy, I know.
No,
but yeah, there's just something about this song, and well, it's also because I'm a keyboard player, right? So I love hearing those fat synth sounds, and I mean, what better than Subdivisions, right? For
right,
especially me at that age, I I got a synthesizer. My first one I think was in 84 or 85. And one of the first things I remember was like, oh man, I got to try to figure out how to play subdivisions. It's such a killer. But I didn't have whatever. I had an old Roland, and it definitely couldn't get the sounds that these Oberheims and these Prophets and stuff they use. I don't know. It was a good keyboard at the time, but it was not getting those kind of sounds. But
I'll say I'm not a keyboard player, but Roland's the name I've heard of, so it couldn't have been that bad.
no, I'm not saying it was a bad keyboard. It's just trying to recreate those sounds that
Right.
that they've spent hours crafting and programming. But
and a lot of money on.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like Analog Kid too. I mean, like I love the way the pre-chorus is you move me. It's so cool and Chemistry. I love the way that the guitar spirals around in that one. I think I mixed up the two songs there, but Chemistry. I absolutely love the keyboards in that one also. So this one, I guess, Chemistry is the only Rush song. I don't know if this is irony, the name of the song. It's the only song to feature a joint Geddy, Alex, and Neil lyric credit.
Yes.
So
I read that as well. I didn't know that either.
Called Chemistry, which is a little bit weird. Digital Man, you talk about a Police influence. I mean, there's ska and then there's reggae, whatever you want to call it. The Weapon, it's what they call part 2 of the Fear trilogy. The first one being Witch Hunt. New World Man. I mean, these are all great. Losing It, super haunting keyboards and strings on this one. I used to not like Losing It, but I've seen some live performances of it, and the more I hear it, I absolutely love the song. And then that brings me to Countdown. Countdown is like for a keyboard nerd and a guy who loves also industrial and Rob Zombie and Nine Inch Nails, like just all of those killer sound bites in the background while they're playing their music. Kind of a cool story. I guess they were guests of Kennedy Space Center. They got a whole tour of the facility, including the building room.
This is the first space shuttle launch, right? They were there for the first ever.
Yeah. And and it's a really haunting song to listen to now because of what ultimately happened with Challenger. And you're like, you trying to separate those two is a little bit tough. But I still love this song. I love there's a cool little keyboard, gets a little solo in there. It's not any intricate melody line, but I don't know. There's something sonically really different and pleasing to the ear about Signals. And if you're someone who absolutely loves in your face, ginormous, electric rock guitar, you probably hate this album with a passion. And there's many people who do. It's very, very polarizing. The diehard Rush people, I still think, are pretty mainly on board with this, but. Yeah, I Signals for me, like I said, it's one of those. There's not that many albums where I sort of missed the boat on it originally, or I just didn't like it, and I go back and I absolutely go, what just happened? I totally missed this, and I've listened to Signals I don't know how many times, and there's no skippers on it for me. It never gets old, and I think it's part of it is every song is totally different. There's not one song on here that sounds like the previous one. I don't think there's one song that sounds like anything else in their catalog either, and I think that helps Signals. So I've got it number 2, and I'm going to give it a solid A.
All right, Signals. Brian likes it. Herd likes it too. Signals is awesome. This is one that I had no really knowledge of. I've never listened to it before, other than Subdivisions, which is a pretty big hit of theirs. They play it live, I think, basically every tour. Love Subdivisions. Is on all the greatest hits stuff too. But the whole rest of the album was like a whole new listen for me, and I love it. It just right away it hit with me. I love every song on it too, Brian. Just like you said, I think it doesn't really have a weak spot. I think everything is this is the Rush that is catered more to me. Just being that I was born and kind of raised in the 80s and these kind of synth sounds and things like that. I love it. I'm a guitar guy, but I still can appreciate the cool sounds that are coming out. And I can still, kind of hear Alex's stuff in there. I still think he kills it on some of these guitar solos. Yes, he's in the background a lot more on this album than anything previously, but I think it works as long as, Alex was cool with it. I could see how it could be frustrating for him, but it's just the final product. You can't argue with it. Production still awesome. Every song sounds really good. Again, I got the headphones on and I love every second of this. Analog Kid, awesome. Just that beginning, the real quick guitar and bass kind of sections going together. It's just super cool. New World Man, even the weird sounds that they have at the beginning of that is just awesome. The weapon has this guitar part that just it's like an earworm. It keeps repeating over and over in your head, but it's just awesome. I mean, I'm with you. This is great. Sounds good. This is the era of Rush for me. I'm kind of excited that we kind of end off here on like a cliffhanger. I feel like Brian mentioned Empire Strikes Back. We're on a cliffhanger here right when I'm in the middle of loving what I'm hearing. I haven't heard a lot of these second part albums that we're doing next week, so I'm excited. Signals is leading me right into that with the excitement. So I'm pumped. Signals is an A for me. Number 2, I never ever would have predicted that I would have this at number 2 when I first started this exercise. But I love Signals, man. It's so good and
Wow.
definitely an album that I'm going to go back to. Absolutely love it. What about you, Mr. H? What do you think?
I really like Signals as well. It sounds a bit of a continuation of Moving Pictures for me. That's not a bad thing, obviously. So it's just not. I don't like it quite as much. But this one, I feel like they tried to fit a little bit of a story into. I guess it was something they didn't really put out there, but I guess some writer put it together and talked to Neil about it. And there's a whole interview with Neil, and Neil was like, "Oh, you picked up on that, huh?" So he's like, "We didn't really want to say much about it, but if you think about like subdivisions, is like like a kid growing up in the suburbs, with Analog Kid and grows up and becomes a man and becomes a new world man, and he's like later on he's got all this life experience, and then losing it and countdown kind of towards the end of a life. It's kind of like a story of life in an evolving world, so but I thought that was a kind of a cool theme, which I never really put together until I read that. Now the more I thought about it, and these lyrics aren't like some of the other ones where it's just way over my head. This is kind of more understandable, and it kind of felt like it had that kind of story to it too. So I thought it was pretty cool. Again, like you said, the production is great. My favorites are Subdivisions, and I love New World Man. That's another earworm one that just gets stuck in my head. So, but there's definitely no skippers on here. It's a really solid album. I have this at number 3. Basically, it's between this one and the first one. I know you guys weren't that high on the first one, but the first one to me is more. It's kind of more raw, and I like the straight ahead rock stuff a little bit more than some of the synth stuff. Like obviously, I like Moving Pictures a lot, but that's like at another level than this album is. So, but this is still a really really good album too. I have it as a B plus. I have this at number 3.
All right. Good job, gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and Brian, do you have your list? We'll go 1 to 9 if you want to give us your list. Unmuted though, preferably.
Okay. Actually, when you hear my list, you might want me to mute it.
Maybe.
I changed it all around. Okay, so starting at number 9, I have the Rush self-titled. Number 8, I have Caress of Steel. Number 7 is Fly By Night. Number 6, Farewell to Kings. Number 5, Hemispheres. Number 4, Permanent Waves. Number 3, 2112. Number 2, Signals. And number 1, with an A+, Moving Pictures.
I think that sounds like pretty much what you had said. I don't know if you moved it around or not.
No,
I thought he had like 4 number 3s and 2 number 7s.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for Moving Pictures number 9. Didn't really like it that much. Signals kind of crappy. All right, Mr. H, what's your 1 to 9?
I have these in. All right, well, we'll go 1 to 9 now.
Whatever
Moving Pictures number 1 for me, easily. There's no secret there. The self-titled Rush number 2, Signals number 3, Permanent Waves number 4, Fly By Night number 5, 2112 number 6, Farewell to Kings number 7 over Hemispheres at number 8, and Caress of Steel number 9. But you heard.
All right.
Give it to us.
All right.
Give it to me again.
Number 1, Moving Pictures, A+, like Brian. I love it. 2 Signals, also like Brian. I have that as an A. Number 3, Permanent Waves. Permanent Waves was close to Signals. Those two are pretty interchangeable. Just, I think because Signals was even newer, I think it kind of just got the nod because it's kind of a newer sound to me. Number 4, 2112. Number 5, the self-titled Rush album. Number 6, I had Fly By Night. Number 7, Farewell to Kings. Number 8, Hemispheres with the asterisk. Number 9, Caress of Bronze or Steel. So there we go. That was fun, guys. Why don't we do this again next week?
Yeah, maybe
guys
next
think?
Tuesday. Say we can do some more albums just like these.
So see you next Tuesday. Is that what you're saying?
Ooh, I don't know if we're allowed to say that on the.
No, that's what you said. You said see you next Tuesday.
True. Yeah, good call. Good call.
So
All
has
right.
anyone seen Rush live?
I was gonna say, did you see him at all for any of these albums? I would say no, probably, right?
No. So Grace Under Pressure was one.
Okay. We usually, cover that when we get to those albums, and I know we're going to talk about it because I've seen them a couple of times too, but obviously later on. So,
all right.
You ever seen him? Heard?
No,
like a plan.
So disappointing because me and Brian, I think, talked about going to see him for the whatever Time Machine tour or whatever it was when they played the whole. Pictures. They were here in Cleveland that we knew they were going to be recording it for that live album.
Yeah.
And we didn't. I don't know why we didn't go.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't either. I mean, I should have,
but no,
I didn't go to that one either. I wish I would have. It's a big regret of mine as far as concert viewing. I did not go to that one. But I had seen him a couple times, so it's not like I'd never seen him. But it's just I wish I would have went to that one. Not knowing now, but you can't know then. They'll be back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, I didn't really follow their day-to-day stuff, but I mean, I didn't know that Neil was sick, and obviously we're gonna probably talk next time about the band almost breaking up, and he just kind of went through some tough times. But I knew about that, but I didn't know he was sick or anything. So of course, when he passed, I just kind of got real depressed with that.
Some people were wrong with their list, Rob said. That's funny.
I'm sure Rob didn't.
What do you mean?
That I had Hemispheres 8 or whatever.
I think he should put his 1 to 9 in there right now. Go type it up. We got a couple minutes there.
Yeah, do it.
Get it in there. Let's see what your 1 to 9 is. Let's see how right you are.
Or whatever the numbers are in Canada.
Yeah.
It's a metric system, it's probably like 3.17 something, right?
Well, is the west coast of Canada still French Canadian, or is that just the east?
I think that's just Quebec, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Quebec.
Yeah, maybe they have more Russian influence because they're over there by Alaska. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
But yeah, so I didn't ever get to see Rush. Disappointed with that. I guess that's why Rob said give him a minute. So I'll just keep talking a little bit. So I guess
he's probably got a minute.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, I didn't see him until later, so I guess I'll talk about that.
So a buddy of mine's actually in the video of the concert they filmed here.
Aren't all 20,000 people in the video? Really?
Yeah. Well, he's like standing on the. He's like he got floor tickets, so he's like, I don't know.
Nice.
But I don't know.
Yeah, a guy I work with wore like I don't know if it's like a lime green, like highlighter green shirt. Like obviously we knew it was going to be filmed, right? But you can see him. I can't remember if he's in the upper or lower deck. But every time they pan to the crowd, you can see him because his shirt is like glowing.
Nice.
So yeah, it was smart of him to do that. He's like, "There's me." So, like, yep,
that's cool. That's what I would do. Like,
good idea.
If you're gonna go, just make sure
he wasn't on the floor, but you can definitely pick him out every time they show the crowd. He's the only one wearing that anywhere near that color shirt.
Yeah, I did buy that record. It's really, really good. It sounds and it has some of their newer stuff. I think it has Clockwork Angel songs on there too. So
yes,
it's got a little bit of stuff from all their eras
and all of Moving Pictures, right?
Yep.
So the guy who kind of originally got me into Rush, sort of after hearing Tom Sawyer and knowing I heard that or whatever, he played guitar in the first band I was ever. He's like 3 years older than me, but anyway, he would tell me stories about the 2112 tour, I guess, in St. Louis, and there was like he used the term paddy wagon, and like he said, there's all these people that they're just arresting people left and right for being stoned and or on acid or tripping out or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it was probably exaggerated a little bit, but it was just when you're when you're kind of young back then, you hear stories like, oh my God, wow, that sounds crazy, like
Yeah.
I can't even imagine seeing the full 2112 tour like that. That just had to be mind blowing.
Oh, right. Yeah, that had to be
They're
awesome.
probably-
And didn't they have was it the washing machines they had on the stage for the time machine?
Yeah,
tour?
For the new one,
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, they had a whole all kinds of story and stuff to it. I noticed. I was watching the video of it as I didn't quite understand it. I don't know if that's something you had to know before, but I don't know. They did
I'm
these
having to
skits
buy
and-
that at some point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Weren't they like a cover band in the beginning of it, in the beginning skit? Like they were a
Yeah.
cover band in this little tiny bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went to the movie. I saw it twice, and I think they added a few things the second time. So I went. Did I go with you, Bob, or I went with Kurt? I think.
No. Yeah, no, I
Okay,
don't
you
think
didn't go. 'Cause I
was
went
able
and
to
actually
go.
saw the same movie. Well, they released this movie, and I'm like, wait, is this? I thought it was a new one, and I'm like, what's the same damn one I just saw 2 years ago? But I didn't mind. It was still cool seeing it again.
Yeah.
I think there was I keep thinking I need to look this up. I didn't this week, but I will for next week. I think there's a documentary of them recording stuff in the studio. I think it was the Rockfield Studios when they went to Wales. And the studio is really cool because it's all wood and it was real spacious and like a whole wall of windows and they had all this wood everywhere. And there's like a documentary of them recording songs in there, and I think it's 3 or 4 hours long. I got to find out what that is and
Yeah, I never
get
heard
it
of
out
that.
there for people to see. I think it was a recording of A Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. I think it was during that time at that Rockfield Studios, but I'll try to find it and find out exactly what it is. I know I'm kind of talking out of my ass right now about it, but I know I've seen parts of it, but I don't know what it's called, so I've never really gone and sought it out and saved it to watch and to stream it later or whatever. But it's got to be out there somewhere.
Yep.
But I remember them all having the long hair, and Getty kind of almost looked like a girl, for
yeah.
a minute there. I was like, wow,
Those robes and stuff.
yeah. So it's just
Looks like Rob's got his
where it's from.
rankings.
Yep. All right, here we go. Drum roll.
Well, he said here they are a minute ago.
But I don't see. I don't see him.
I don't see him.
Come on,
Yeah.
Rob.
Come on.
A little
Just waiting on
faster.
you, man. Waiting on you. It's past my bedtime.
Maybe if your name was Bob, maybe.
Right? If you just went by Bob. Come on.
Maybe he's
Almost
moving some
there.
pictures.
Ah,
Bob, this is no Robert. This is no fly by night organization.
I mean, you got to say, at least he signaled us that he's almost there.
operation.
2 minutes later.
It's taking him 212
Seconds, minutes.
Yes.
Well, I guess while we're waiting, definitely the whatever lighted stage or whatever, Brian, we were talking about earlier. That is the no.
No, we
Rob,
can't
see
see
him. No.
Maybe there's a character limit or something.
Yeah, there might be. Maybe.
It says, here they are. That's it.
Yeah.
And then this is the next one.
Watch if he's just messing with
can't
us. I'm
see
just
that?
going to pretend to show him and not.
Yeah.
Well, we
hey,
will
post
we
them
will-
in the chat, and we'll cover them next week. We'll
will
read
for
them
sh-
off.
Yeah, let's read them next week, man.
Yeah,
Post
sounds
them
good.
in the chat on YouTube or wherever, and we'll find them or email them to us, twobobscast@gmail.com, and we'll read them off.
Yeah, definitely check out our Facebook page. Maybe throw them on there. But yeah, next week we're gonna go from Grace Under Pressure to the end. So hopefully we will see everybody next week. Brian, thanks again. And again, we will see you next week for the herd, Mr. H. Thank you all for listening to Two Bob's Cast, and we will see you in the next one.
Rock on!
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.